What's up, nerds? How y'all doing?
But hey, I'm chalked up. I'm ready to go, baby.
Oh, what's reasonable? Well, there's many answers to that, and they are all problematic because in the end of the day, each individual is going to be responsible for determining what's reasonable to them, and the rest of society is going to say, you're unreasonable.
So again, this is so mind-blowingly dumb that Matt thinks that rationality and what's reasonable is a social construct. I mean, that's essentially what he just said. Like, everybody's responsible as individuals, so he's got a relativistic account of what is reasonable. I mean, reasonable beliefs means reasons for the beliefs, right? The beliefs that you think you have good reasons for what you believe. And Matt's basically saying that that's all determined by the subjective tastes or states of the individual. I mean, that's completely ludicrous, right? Just philosophical garbage nonsense, like so easy to refute. And I'm sure Trent will do that. But I mean, does Matt really think that? I mean, it's hard to actually believe that he thinks this, right? I mean, most atheists do. I'm not doubting it, but it's like, do you even grasp that when you come to a debate, you're presupposing objective rules of logic and argumentation? Do you get, I mean, debate wouldn't be possible if you didn't assume that, right? The two parties couldn't be appealing to the rules and laws of logic and debate.
Or you're incredibly...
We often use the example in Discord, right? When the atheists come of chess. I mean, when you come and play chess, you're agreeing when you come to the table to the rules of chess. Like, you don't have the right, you don't get to like, I'm going to play my chess. Okay, right? And what is your chess? Well, my rules for chess are I bring my checker pieces and I thump them at your pieces, and when I knock your pieces off, I win. And that's what I think chess is. Because that's not chess. Okay, you're playing a different game. That's not the rules of chess. And that's the point here, right? If you come to debate, there are laws of logic, laws and rules of debate that are the case and that you are submitting to by virtue of coming to the debate. And if you don't believe that and reject that, then you're going to lose the debate because you're debating. You're refuting yourself. Remember the JF debate? This is what happened, right? But Matt just doesn't even seem to have a clue about this.
Reasonable. And so we try to work together. This is one of the reasons why we have scientific methods that remove as much of the bias and...
I mean, imagine being so low-tier scientism, basic bitch empiricism, that you think the scientific method is going to tell you what reason is, rationality is, and what's... I mean, it's like the questions of epistemology, Matt, are prior to the doing of science, the making of claims, the making of arguments, claiming how the world is or isn't, right? And you can't, just like I'm going to critique Trent, likewise, you can't just start saying things without prior consideration. And this is what we keep having to remind the atheists and the people in the domain of internet philosophy who haven't studied philosophy at the academic level. They don't seem to be aware of the state of the question in academia. I mean, atheists, do you realize that they don't do epistemology anymore, typically speaking? This has been surrendered, right? What does Quine say? It's time to give up epistemology as a classical enterprise of justification and rational belief. It's just psychology now. That's the state of the question after Quine, and as Dr. Mannion points out in his paper, the debate hasn't changed from Hume. The debate on epistemology at the academic level is basically still debating Kant and Hume questions. It hasn't progressed since then. The notable paper, The Two Dogmas, reduces epistemology to psychology. That's a surrendering of the discipline. We don't do it anymore. If Hume and Kant are correct. That's why I kept raising in the debate with Matt, Hume and Kant over and over. And Matt had no idea what I was raising, never got or grasped what my objections were, and just ignored it.
Subjectivity is possible, even though we can't completely remove it. I'd argue in simplest terms, a claim's reasonable if the claim is consistent with what we know to be true and possible within reality.
So somebody asked a good question there. Break down the scientific method. That would be a good video because, if you look at somebody like Husserl, Husserl had a great breakdown in the logical investigations of the logic and math that the scientific method relies on. And other things such as induction, right? You inductively approach questions and you deduce things. You then make deductive approximations of what's going on in these different cases, right? And so point there is that you can't do this stuff, right, if Hume and Kant were correct. There's no basis for science. I mean, this is Kant's whole point, right? Kant saw that if Hume was right, then science is done. We can't, it has no basis because epistemology is gone. And I'm not Kantian. We're not saying Kant is correct in total, right? The Kantian system is goofy, right? It's silly. But Kant raised good questions, and he correctly saw that if Hume was right, then this stuff's done. Like we don't have a basis for this stuff. Now, after Kant, some people do come along and raise good questions and make good points. Like Husserl says in the Logical Investigations, that the scientific method proceeds on the basis of logical and mathematical principles. So they're prior to the scientific method. They're presupposed in the scientific method. So, Matt, you can't do those things justifiably without giving an account for the things that are prior to the doing of science. And Matt never got that, and has never gotten that, and probably never will get that, right? Short of a miracle.
It simply does no good to argue that it's reasonable because it's internally consistent, because that's true for many sci-fi fantasy stories, or at least some of the best ones.
That's an objection to coherentism, which I don't think Trent made any argument about coherentism. So I don't know, where's Matt getting this argument of coherentism and how you reply to a coherence theory of truth and knowledge when Trent is not a coherentist and didn't make that argument.
So what does the physical evidence about the resurrection tell us? Well, as far as I'm aware, there is no physical evidence. There's only a story and testimonials. Testimonials about, hey, so-and-so's.
So I'm anticipating, I think, if I remember from the Lewis clip, where Trent goes with this. And it's like, Matt, do you not understand that what you're saying is like makes the discipline of history impossible? Now, I don't think Matt is going to be so absurd as to think that there's no such thing as the discipline of history, but Matt doesn't understand that the arguments that he's making actually make history impossible. There's not anything like history. And Trent already kind of brought that up and anticipated that in his opening statement, right? But it's like Matt prepared an opening statement that wasn't interested in Trent's opening statement, which sometimes debaters do because, they want to stick to their notes or whatever. And they can't do improv, or they can't, think on the fly. And I mean, if you go second, that's what you have to do, right? You're going to be bound to, if the guy who went first diffused half of your, big guns that you brought in your opening statement, then you're going to have to think on the fly and come up with something better. Like, it's not going to work to give your opening statement, half of which was already addressed in the other guy's opening statement.
This is what happens. If Christianity is true, then the resurrection of Jesus must be the single most important fact in history. And for that fact, we have nothing but hearsay.
Now, Matt's criteria of what hearsay is and no historical evidence is actually flatly contradicted by the way all historical evidences and attestation actually works, right? I mean, what's the historical attestation to the existence of Plato? Oh, these medieval manuscripts that are the earliest translations of Plato. Literally. Did you know that the oldest translations of Plato are the Middle Ages? Oh, okay. So, Matt, do we also now have no reason to believe in Plato? Do we have no reason to believe in Herodotus? Do we have no reason to believe in, Alexander the Great? Because the things that will qualify as historical evidences for Alexander, Aristotle, Socrates, will not meet Matt's criterion for what is evidence of historical things. So this is so dumb on Matt's part that Matt literally is completely destroying not only himself, but the possibility of history at all. And he never gets this, which is kind of amazing.
Divinity raises the humanity of Christ through theosis, and that's exactly what we experience.